Can you lend me some money? This was the first time Mu Ching-een had taken the initiative to speak to me since we started university. Then she added, "I'll do anything you ask." I was a little surprised. This campus belle, who had always been as cold as ice, usually wouldn't even make eye contact with people. Why would she suddenly approach me today and to borrow money of all things? Everyone at school knew I was a rich second-generation kid. I didn't get into this prestigious university that others dreamed of because of my exam scores, but because my dad donated a building. For me, university life was pure enjoyment. I didn't have to bury my head in books like most people. My daily task was to go out and have fun. And in my spare time, I'd check out the beautiful girls and their legs on campus. What a wonderful youth. Mu Ching-een was my classmate and a recognized campus belle. But she didn't fit in with a lively atmosphere around her. She always had a cold demeanor, like a snow-capped mountain far from the hustle and bustle of the world. Many confident suitors have been rebuffed by her. I had also considered it, but seeing her unapproachable aura, I decided against it. There was no need to ask for trouble. But today, this snow-capped mountain had voluntarily thawed for a moment. She led me to a secluded grove behind the academic building and asked to borrow money, but she just kept her head down, not daring to look at me. Watching her with her head down, I was surprised, but I deliberately put on a playful expression and asked how much and what $1 million. My dad gambled away the house. My mom is very sick and needs surgery and follow-up treatment. I really have no other choice. Her voice trembled. $1 million to me is nothing but a drop in the bucket, but why should I help her? I looked at her fragile appearance, a complex emotion welling up inside me. Perhaps it was a desire for mischief. Or perhaps I wanted to tear down that icy facade of hers. I smiled. That's no small sum, but why should I believe you'll pay it back? Or rather, what do you have to pay me back with? Her body trembled. She shot a quick glance at me, then bit her lower lip. As long as you can help me, I'm willing to give anything. She paused, then added, including myself. The smile on my face deepened. Oh, you're the one who said it. Don't worry, this will be quick. As soon as the words left my mouth, I lunged forward, pinning her back against the rough trunk of a tree. She let out a cry, terror flashing in her eyes. I deliberately pretended to tear at her clothes, my movements rough. For a moment, she instinctively put up a strong resistance, her body stiffening, her hands pressed against my chest. But just as quickly, that faint resistance vanished. She closed her eyes, her long lashes trembling violently as 2 large teardrops slid from the corners. Then I saw her eyes redden, her face a picture of complete resignation. Seeing her like this, I suddenly found it all tasteless. I let her go and took a step back. I'm messing with you. I'll transfer the money in a bit. Remember, you owe me $500,000 now. With that, I turned and walked away. After a few steps, I heard a thank you from behind me. The next day, I was awakened by the incessant vibration of my phone. 99 plus unread messages. Various group chats and private messages were frantically at me. I opened the most active campus forum and an enlarged, secretly taken photo blatantly occupied the center of the screen. It was the exact moment from yesterday in the small woods when I pushed Mu Ching-een against the tree trunk. The shooting angle was extremely tricky. From the side, our bodies were pressed tightly together, my head was close to hers, and her face was slightly raised. With the effect of the borrowed angle, it looked exactly like we were passionately kissing. The background of the photo was blurred, further highlighting the solid evidence that sparked the imagination. The comment section below exploded. Holy, the Ice Queen campus belle was taken down just like that. I hate rich people. Yeah, I thought she was so aloof. Turns out she still bowed to capital in the end. I heard yesterday that Mu Ching-een took the initiative to find the rich second generation, so it was to throw herself at him. Usually, she acts so high and mighty, but in the end, filthy language and ridicule of Mu Ching-een being a gold digger and pretending to be pure flooded the screen. Just then, a new message popped up. It was from Mu Ching-een, "What should I do?" followed by a helpless emoji. I rubbed my temples and replied to her, "Don't worry, I'll be right over." I met her in the most remote corner of the campus coffee shop. She was wearing a mask, revealing only a pair of eyes with red rims, obviously having cried. When she saw me, she subconsciously lowered her head. Now, when I walk on the road, so many people are pointing and talking about me, her voice was choked with sobs. Even my roommates are being sarcastic, saying I'm a gold digger. She raised her head, her eyes filled with panic and humiliation. How am I supposed to stay in school in the future? A headache came over me, and I cursed myself inwardly for taking advantage of her yesterday and causing such big trouble. Looking at her in this state, an inexplicable sense of guilt washed over me. I took a deep breath and said, since they all call you a gold digger, you might as well be one for them to see. They wish they even had the chance. She looked at me in confusion. How about this? I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. We pretend to be a couple. Isn't it perfectly normal for a couple to be intimate in a less crowded place? The rumors will fall apart on their own. Her body stiffened, her eyes filled with resistance. Don't be so quick to refuse, I continued. And don't live at the school anymore. Just move into my off-campus apartment. It just so happens I need a housekeeper. You can clean and cook for me every day to pay off your debt. I'll count it as $10,000 a month deducted from the money you owe me. This way, it solves your housing problem and also confirms our special relationship. Shutting those people up. Two birds with one stone. She fell silent, her head lowered for a long time before she said, okay. There was a big lecture in the afternoon. I timed it perfectly and under everyone's watchful eyes, walked up to Mu Ching-een, who was waiting for me at the entrance of the academic building and naturally took her hand. Her hand was cold and trembled slightly, but she didn't pull away. Under countless gazes of shock, contempt, or curiosity, I led her straight toward the classroom. The moment we stepped into the classroom, the originally noisy room fell silent in an instant. Everyone's expressions were incredibly rich. Surprise, scorn, amusement. All kinds of gazes focused on us. I swept a cold glance around the room, glaring with a warning at a few of the people with the most exaggerated expressions, then nonchalantly pulled Mu Ching-een to a seat in the back row. I didn't let go of her hand the entire time. To be honest, although her hand was cold, it was slender and soft. It felt actually quite nice. The turmoil subsided quickly. On one hand, after Mu Ching-een and I loudly and officially announced our relationship, those rumors about her secretly throwing herself at me lost their footing. We were already blatantly holding hands on the way to class. So, what kind of news was a little intimacy in the woods? On the other hand, I quickly found the guy who had secretly taken and posted the photos. He was a boy from the next class who had always had a thing for Mu Ching-een, but had been repeatedly given the cold shoulder. I found someone to have a friendly chat with him, and he soon took the initiative to clarify on the forum, admitting that the photo was a matter of angle and deleted the post to apologize. As promised, Mu Ching-een also moved into my off-campus apartment, officially beginning her career as a nanny. The house was very large, and usually I was the only one living there, making it feel empty. Her arrival did indeed add a lot of life to the place. Not 2 days after she settled in, my little bit of wicked taste emerged. I specifically ordered a classic-style maid outfit online, black and white with lace trim and a headpiece. When I handed it to her, I could see the blush that instantly rose on her face and her obvious resistance. What is the meaning of this? She asked, holding the flimsy fabric. We're clothes for home, I said with a matter-of-fact expression. Isn't it normal for a nanny to wear a maid outfit? It also satisfies a small, harmless fetish of mine. I deliberately emphasized the word harmless. No, absolutely not, she refused decisively, stuffing the clothes back at me and turning to leave. I had anticipated she would be like this. In the following days, I began my persistent persuasion. It wasn't exactly coercion or bribery. Just a few words muttered by her side from time to time as she cleaned and cooked. Look, this house is so big. Cleaning in a t-shirt and jeans just ruins the atmosphere. Just think of it as role-playing. Adding a little spice to life. It's just the two of us at home anyway. No one else will see. What are you afraid of? You'll definitely look good in this. I chatted on, pestering and cajoling. She went from flat-out refusal at the beginning to silent treatment later on and then to a wavering gaze and a softened attitude. Finally, on a weekend morning, I got out of bed and walked into the living room to see her in the kitchen preparing breakfast with her back to me. She was wearing that very maid outfit. The black and white dress outlined her slender waist. The sash at the back was meticulously tied into a bow, and her legs beneath the hem of the skirt were straight and long. Sunlight streamed through the window and fell upon her, creating a scene of strange beauty with a touch of shy awkwardness, yet inexplicably harmonious. She heard my footsteps and her body visibly stiffened, but she didn't turn around. However, the tips of her ears turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. I smiled, said nothing more, and sat down at the dining table content. Well, it seemed she had finally compromised. To make her feel better about it, and to make the work uniform worth its price, I revised our previous arrangement. I told her that from now on, I would transfer 20,000 yuan to her every month for daily groceries, utilities, property management fees, and all other expenses. The rest of the money would be her salary and, well, a subsidy for the uniform for her to keep. Her hand, which was chopping vegetables, paused for a moment, and she let out a low aha. The success of this trial undoubtedly fueled my audacity. Since she had accepted the maid outfit, could other things also be put on the agenda? I began to more boldly buy her all sorts of work clothes. There was a pure and innocent sailor uniform carrying a hint of playfulness and youthfulness. A sexy and fiery bunny girl costume. Its leather and fishnet outlining a completely different kind of allure, and even some slightly retro Lolita dresses whose intricate lace and ribbons gave her a unique sort of elegance when worn. Every time I handed her new clothes, I could see the fleeting embarrassment and resistance that flashed across her face. Regarding the sailor uniform, she might mumble softly, "This is too childish." Faced with the bunny girl costume, she would blush to the tips of her ears and toss it back to me, saying decisively, "I would rather die than wear this." But I was experienced by now and knew well the power of persistence. I no longer tried to persuade her with incessant talk. Instead, I changed my method. Sometimes I would silently place the clothes at her bedroom door, and other times I would simply look at her with an expectant gaze. The standoff would always last for a while. She would stuff the clothes into the deepest part of her wardrobe, pretending nothing had happened. But within a few days, at some unguarded moment, I would always find that she had changed into the new outfit. Perhaps she would be wearing the sailor uniform while cleaning the study, awkwardly standing on her tiptoes to wipe a bookshelf. Or perhaps on a weekend afternoon, wearing the bunny girl costume she had sworn she would never wear. She would bring me a plate of fruit, her neck flushed pink and her eyes darting away, completely unable to meet my gaze. I must admit, having a top-tier beauty wandering around the house every day in a variety of eye-pleasing outfits brought me immense visual satisfaction. At school, we were nearly inseparable. We attended classes together, went to the cafeteria together, and when I played basketball, she would be on the sidelines waiting with water and a towel. The initial awkwardness and restraint slowly faded away through our daily interactions. She no longer tensed up completely when I held her hand. Occasionally, when I was bragging and joking with others, she would even stand aside with a faint, helpless, yet indulgent smile. Although in front of others, she remained a woman of few words, maintaining that cool and distant air. A tacit understanding formed between us. At home, she was the nanny who wore all sorts of peculiar outfits. Outside, she was the school belle girlfriend who played the part of my partner. Ever since Mu Ching-in moved in, my days of all-night partying and hanging out at bars have dwindled without me even realizing it. The large empty house now has a sense of life, a homey feel to it, and it seems to hold a strange, inexplicable pull on me. Every evening, I find myself more inclined to curl up on the sofa, watching her drift around in front of me in her various work uniforms or watching some boring TV show together. But old habits die hard. That night, a buddy I hadn't seen in a long time came back from abroad and got a group together. Once the atmosphere got going, I couldn't hold back and ended up getting dead drunk. I don't even know how I got out of the bar in the end. I just remember collapsing on the roadside, putting my arm around a passing stray dog, and rambling on, calling it brother. In a haze, I think I managed to dial a number and slur into the phone. "Hey, come get me. I can't find my way home." The next thing I knew, as I was regaining a bit of consciousness, I felt someone forcefully pull me up from the ground. A familiar, faint, fresh scent lingered at the tip of my nose, dispelling some of the stench of alcohol. I forced my eyes open, and in my blurry vision, I saw Mu Ching-yin's beautiful face, tinged with a hint of anger. She struggled to support my body, which had gone limp as mud, her tone reproachful. "Why did you drink so much?" I just giggled foolishly and let her stuff me into the back seat of a taxi. As soon as the car started, inertia sent me tumbling towards her, and I took the opportunity to rest my head on her chest. The push I expected never came. Her body stiffened for a moment, but then she just shifted slightly to let me lean more comfortably, still muttering under her breath. "You can't drink this much again next time. It's bad for you." I tilted my head up, looking at her with drunken, hazy eyes, and reached out to pinch her cheek. My fingers touched its delicate warmth. "Oh, is this you caring about me, my rumored girlfriend?" She instinctively tried to turn her head away, but stopped halfway through the motion. Instead, she just slapped my hand away and said irritably, "Who cares about you? You just stink of alcohol. You're making me sick." The driver in the front seat chimed in cheerfully, "Young people should drink a little. It shows they have energy." I remember when my wife and I were dating. It was the same way she always said I didn't hear the rest of what the driver said. I only felt that Mu Ching-yin's embrace was soft and warm with a reassuring scent. I chuckled and buried my head deeper into her embrace, mumbling something before completely losing consciousness. The next day at noon, I was woken up by a headache. The sunlight was blinding. I sat up, rubbing my temples, and looked around in a daze. This didn't seem to be my room. My heart skipped a beat and I quickly looked beside me. There was no one there, but there was a clear indentation on the pillow. Just then, the bedroom door was gently pushed open and Mu Ching-yin walked in with a glass of honey water. Seeing that I was awake, a trace of unnaturalness flashed across her face. "You're awake? Have some water." I took the glass and asked tentatively, how did I end up sleeping here last night? She glanced at me, her tone flat, but the tips of her ears were a little red. "You have a nerve to ask. You passed out on the way home last night, and I couldn't wake you up when we got here. I tried to put you on the sofa, but you wouldn't have it. You insisted on sleeping with me, saying you were scared, acting like a child, and wouldn't let go of me. I tried hard to remember, but only fragmented and blurry images came to mind. And then she raised an eyebrow. And then we went to sleep. You held me and slept like a log. You didn't move all night." With that, she turned and left, leaving me alone and flustered in the bed. I leaned against the headboard, rubbing my aching forehead and silently regretting. Such a good opportunity. A man and a woman sharing a bed, and I just slept soundly all night. Nothing happened. Drinking really messes things up. Something terrible has happened. When I got the call from my dad saying he was coming here for business next week and wanted to stop by to see me, my scalp went numb. "Dad, really don't. I'm doing great here. You just focus on your work. Just keep sending money. You brat. What's wrong with me seeing my own son? I hear you've been behaving yourself lately. Not fooling around so much." My dad chuckled on the other end of the line. That's because I have a girlfriend. We were living together." "Yes, living together. It's not convenient for you to come." In my desperation, I had to throw out this killer move, hoping to scare him off. Who knew that? As soon as my dad heard this, his voice instantly became higher than mine, filled with pleasant surprise. "What? Really? You're finally doing something productive. Then I have to come. I must see if my daughter-in-law is blind to have fallen for you. It's settled. I'll be there next Wednesday. Dad." "Hello, Dad." Listening to the dial tone, I wanted to cry, but had no tears. I had really shot myself in the foot this time. I knew I couldn't stop this formidable force, so I had to bite the bullet and go talk to Mu Ching-yin. Ching-yin, there's something I have to trouble you with," I said, wringing my hands a little embarrassed. She was arranging flowers and looked up at my words. "My dad is coming to see me next week. I told him that you and I are living together." Seeing her eyes widen instantly, I quickly added, "He was so happy when he heard he insists on meeting you. So on that day, could you force yourself and pretend to be my real girlfriend for a day?" Mu Ching-yin's cheeks turned visibly red, her fingers unconsciously tightening on the flower stem. She lowered her head and didn't speak for a long time. I waited nervously, mentally calculating how to smooth things over if she refused. Just as I was about to give up, she nodded almost imperceptibly. "Okay." I instantly breathed a sigh of relief. A huge weight lifted from my heart. But then another problem popped up. To meet my dad, I couldn't let her wear those maid outfits or sailor uniforms, could I? The first time meeting the parents, it has to be a bit more formal. "Oh, are you free this weekend? I'll take you to buy some clothes. You have to dress respectably to meet the parents," I suggested. She seemed to want to refuse, but after looking down at her simple loungewear and then considering an inspection of my father's caliber, she finally nodded. Early Saturday morning, just as the sky was beginning to lighten, I was too excited to sleep and ran to her door to knock. "Are you awake? Time to get up." A rustling sound came from inside, followed by a response thick with sleepiness. The door unlocked. "Come in." I pushed the door open and went in. The curtains in the room were still drawn, and the light was dim. Mu Ching-yin sat up, clutching the blanket. Her eyes were drowsy, and her long hair was messily draped over her shoulders like a lazy kitten. She rubbed her eyes and asked groggy, "So early, what's going on?" I took a step forward, grabbed her wrist, and tried to pull her out of bed. "Get up. The sun's been up for ages. I'm taking you shopping." Caught off guard, she was pulled bolt upright. The strap of her thin silk nightgown slipped off one shoulder and the neckline fell askew. In an instant, a flash of fair skin and her delicate collarbones were exposed in the dim light. "Ah!" she cried out, instantly wide awake. Her face flushed as red as a ripe apple, and she hastily pulled the blanket to wrap herself tightly, glaring at me with a mixture of shame and annoyance. I was stunned for a moment, too. The image of that fleeting glimpse lingered in my mind. While enjoying the feast for my eyes, I quickly turned around and apologized profusely. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I was just trying to wake you up. While I was apologizing with my mouth, inwardly, I was blooming with joy. Wrapped in her blanket, she glared at me indignantly, her cheeks crimson and her eyes filled with embarrassment. You get out first. I need to change. I chuckled, backing out of the room as I said, All right. I'll go out and wait for you. Hurry up. The daughter-in-law has to meet the in-laws eventually. Today, I'll take you to get all dressed up. A pillow hit the door I had just closed with pinpoint accuracy, accompanied by her indignant voice. You're the ugly one. I stood outside the door, rubbing my chin in an exceptionally good mood. I waited outside for a while before Mu Qingyin finally opened the door. She had clearly put a lot of effort into her appearance. She wore light makeup that made her already beautiful and refined features even more exquisite. Her long hair was draped softly over her shoulders, and she had changed into a simple dress that made my eyes light up. What are you looking at? My direct stare made her a little uncomfortable, and she averted her face slightly. Just looking at how beautiful my girlfriend is. I grinned and took her hand. Let's go. I'm going to turn you into the most beautiful daughter-in-law in the world today. I grabbed the car keys and pulled her toward the garage. There was only one thing on the agenda for today. Shopping for a battle outfit. However, I soon paid the price for my naivety. I had assumed that shopping was a simple matter of picking an item and buying it. A quick and decisive affair. But that was clearly not Mu Qingyin's style. Starting from the first floor of the mall, she went into almost every single women's clothing store, holding clothes up against herself or trying them on one by one in the fitting room. By the end of the morning, my legs were ready to give out, and the number of bags in my hands kept increasing. She tried on elegant suits, sharp pantsuits, and even some slightly more playful casual wear. Everything looked great on her, but I always felt like something was missing. Something that wouldn't be enough to truly impress a seasoned man of the world like my dad. Just as I was about to give up, inspiration struck. That's it. A dress. The one thing that can best accentuate a woman's gentle and feminine qualities. I immediately pulled her, who had just come out of the fitting room, and headed straight for the most high-end luxury women's clothing store in the city. The atmosphere in the store was quiet and luxurious, and a sales associate wore a perfectly appropriate smile. My eyes were immediately drawn to a lotus root pink silk dress hanging in the display window. The design was simple and elegant, the cut graceful. Try this one, I said to Mu Qingyin, pointing at the dress. She glanced at the price tag, took a sharp breath, and whispered, It's too expensive. There's no need. Listen to me. Go try it on. I pushed the dress into her hands without taking no for an answer and shoved her into the fitting room. I waited outside, my heart pounding with anticipation. When the curtain of the fitting room was pulled aside, I was completely stunned. The lotus root pink silk fabric made her skin look whiter than snow. The form-fitting design perfectly outlined her slender waist and graceful curves, and a knee-length hem revealed her straight, fair calves. She stood there shyly, her head slightly lowered, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. Under the lights, she seemed to glow like a pink lotus, quietly blooming, elegant, refined, and devastatingly beautiful. This is the one. I heard my own voice come out, a little hoarse, my heart thumping uncontrollably in my chest. But she still thought it was too extravagant. No. With a wave in my hand, I told the sales associate to ring it up, afraid that if I waited a second longer, she would change her mind. Seeing her in a new dress, a little reserved, but unable to hide her joy, I felt the money was more than well spent. That evening, when we finally returned home, laden with shopping bags, I collapsed onto the sofa in exhaustion. As I looked at Mu Qingyin sitting beside me, her cheeks slightly flushed and her hair a little messy from our shopping trip, a wicked idea began to form in my mind. Qingyin, there's one more thing. I moved closer to her, my expression serious. She turned her head in confusion. Look, we're already living together. My dad is coming next week. If he finds out we're still sleeping in separate rooms, won't the whole act fall apart? I tried my best to look sincere and innocent. To make the act more convincing, shouldn't we? Get into character ahead of time. Get used to it. Her face flushed red again in an instant, her gaze avoiding mine. What? What do you mean? I clear my throat. How about you move into my room or I move into yours? We have to sleep in the same room. No way. She refused without a second thought, the tips of her ears turning crimson. How could that be okay? Why not? I began to use my powers of persuasion. We'd just be sleeping in the same room. It's not like I said we have to do anything. Look, the bed is so big. There's more than enough space for each of us to have half. I promise I'll behave. This is for the greater good. What if my dad suddenly wants a tour of the rooms? I reasoned with her, appealed to her emotions, and whispered in her ear for a full half-hour. She went from staunchly refusing at the beginning to silence, and then finally, in a voice that was barely audible, she said, "Well, all right, then. All right." I was ecstatic. Fortune favors the prepared. The thought of being able to share a room with her for the next few days, of being able to see her sleeping face the moment I opened my eyes at night, made me so excited I could hardly contain myself. Last time I was too drunk and nothing happened. This time I'm wide awake. The one in a favorable position gets the prize first. I have to seize this opportunity. Night fell and only a dim yellow bedside lamp was lit in the bedroom. After Mu Ching-yin washed up, she slowly moved to the bedside, lifted a corner of the quilt, and carefully lay down. Her body was tense, keeping as far away from me as possible, almost to the point of falling off the bed. Seeing her as if facing a great enemy, I found it somewhat amusing and also cute. I deliberately moved closer to her and brought up a topic to help her relax. "So, how has your mother been lately? Is her health any better?" She didn't seem to expect me to ask this. After a moment of surprise, she answered softly, "Yes, much better. The surgery was a success, and she's slowly recovering." "Really? Thank you so much for lending me the money. It's a small thing. Don't keep mentioning it." I waved my hand and then chatted casually about some school matters, trying to ease the atmosphere. The air was filled with the faint, pleasant scent of her body wash. "You smell so nice," I couldn't help but say. "Most girls do," she responded in a small voice. I continued with some small talk for a while. Then my gaze fell upon her hand resting on the quilt. Her hand was small with slender and fair fingers. I casually reached out my hand and gently covered the back of hers. "Your hand is so small." "It's not." She subconsciously tried to pull back, but I took the opportunity to hold her hand, opening her palm to compare it with mine. Then slowly and tentatively, I intertwined my fingers with hers. Our hands clasped together. A flash of panic crossed her face, but unexpectedly, she didn't struggle or pull her hand away, simply allowing me to hold it tightly. Feeling her silent consent, my heartbeat quickened. I turned on my side to face her, gazing into her eyes under the dim warm light, and asked softly, "Mu Ching-yin, do you think I'm a bad person, forcing you to do so many things? To change into those strange clothes and even making you pretend to be my girlfriend?" She immediately shook her head, looking at me with earnest eyes. "You're not a bad person. You're just a little lonely." I froze. Lonely. The word was like a tiny needle giving me a gentle prick. It was something I had never even considered myself. The identity of a rich heir, a seemingly bustling circle of friends, a life of spending money like water. Beneath all this glamour, was I really lonely? In the moment I was lost in thought, she seemed to grow shy under my gaze and subconsciously try to lower her head. Almost instinctively, I reached out my other hand and gently cupped her chin, stopping her from averting her eyes. Just like that, we looked at each other in the quiet night, our breaths audible. The light cast tiny flecks of glitter in her clear eyes, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. An indescribable, intimate atmosphere filled the air, and the temperature seemed to be quietly rising. My heart pounded like a drum as a powerful impulse surged through me. I no longer hesitated. I slowly lowered my head and gently kissed her lips. Her lips were soft and slightly cool with a hint of sweetness. Her eyes flew wide open, filled with astonishment. But I didn't stop. I just gently held her lower lip, sucking on it tenderly, carefully tracing its shape with the tip of my tongue. At first, she didn't respond like a statue, but gradually, I felt her tense body slowly relax. She closed her eyes and began to respond to me hesitantly and shyly. Her response was light and clumsy, yet filled my heart with immense ecstasy and affection. I deepened the kiss, tentatively prying open her pearly teeth and intertwining with her tender tongue. One hand remained interlocked with hers, while the other uncontrollably wrapped around her waist, pulling her tighter into my embrace, my palm gently caressing her slender back. The kiss lasted for a long time until we were both breathless and had to part. Her face was flushed, her eyes hazy. She gasped for air with her lips slightly parted, her chest heaving. She leaned softly against me like a delicate flower moistened by rain and dew. Breathtakingly beautiful. Seeing her like this, a wave of heat surged through me. Just as I was about to make my next move, she suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist, her voice trembling with a hint of pleading. Wait a moment. Can you give me some time? I am not ready yet." Looking at the lingering shyness and a trace of unease in her eyes, I took a deep breath. Suppressing the desire within me, I pulled her back into my arms, gently resting my chin on her shoulder. Okay, I'll wait for you. After a moment of silence, I began to speak of a past I had never mentioned to anyone, my voice low. My family was just an ordinary family before. My dad always wanted to make something of himself, and my mom was always there with him through thick and thin. My mom was the best person in the world to me. Later, my dad's business started to pick up a bit. He had a sand and gravel pit. One time, my mom was taking me to the pit to find my dad, and on the way, there was a car accident. At the last moment, my mom protected me tightly beneath her. I was fine, but I couldn't go on. I buried my face in the crook of her neck, deeply inhaling her reassuring scent. You're the first person in all these years to say that I'm lonely. She listened quietly without offering any grand words of comfort. She simply turned slightly and with the hand I wasn't holding gently caressed my cheek. Then, as if coaxing a child, she gently patted my back. Sleep now. I'll lull you to sleep. I nuzzled against her, finding a comfortable position. I closed my eyes and answered in a low voice, okay. The following days were particularly tranquil and warm at night. Mu Ching-een seemed to have gradually grown accustomed to sharing a bed, no longer as stiff as she was initially. Every evening, I would naturally extend my arm for her to rest her head on, holding her close in my embrace. At first, she was still a bit shy, but later she would proactively find a comfortable position, curling up against my chest like a dependent kitten. Finally, the day arrived when my father came. After dressing up carefully, Mu Ching-een and I went to the airport together to pick him up. I specifically asked her to wear the lotus pink dress we had bought that day. With light makeup, she looked fresh and captivating, standing out strikingly in the crowd. As soon as my father emerged, his gaze went straight past me and landed on Mu Ching-een, his eyes immediately lighting up. He strode over first, giving me a hearty pat on the shoulder and laughing loudly. Good job, son. You've got great taste. Finally did something decent. Then he turned to Mu Ching-een, his smile becoming warm and kind. So this is Ching-een. Seeing you in person today, you're even more beautiful than in the photos. If this kid dares to bully you, just tell me anytime and I'll set him straight. Mu Ching-een's cheeks flushed slightly, though a bit nervous. She remained graceful and bowed slightly. Hello, uncle. My name is Mu Ching-een. He treats me quite well. Good, good. If he doesn't treat you well, I won't let him off the hook. My father grinned from ear to ear, taking an exquisite velvet box from his carry-on bag and handing it to Mu Ching-een, a little token for our first meeting. I hope you don't mind it. Mu Ching-een looked at me somewhat flustered, and I nodded at her. Only then did she accept it, gently opening the box to reveal a simply designed yet exquisite diamond necklace that sparkled under the light. This is too precious, uncle. I can't accept it. She hurriedly declined. Come on, take it. It's a greeting gift and also a thank you for being willing to put up with our little troublemaker here. Without waiting for further protest, my father firmly pressed the box in her hand, his tone leaving no room for refusal. Dinner was arranged at a high-end restaurant. During meal, my dad was incredibly considerate towards Mu Ching-een, asking about her studies and her family. The atmosphere was harmonious. The way my dad looked at her was with a complete satisfaction and fondness of someone sizing up a future daughter-in-law. After dinner, I took my dad to his hotel. As we were saying goodbye, my dad pulled me aside, lowered his voice, and spoke with a rare seriousness. Son, I can tell Ching-een is a good kid. She's sensible and steady, not like those girls who are just after our family's money. You have to treat her well, settle down, and don't let her down, you hear? I nodded solemnly. Dad, I know. Leaving the hotel, the night breeze was slightly cool yet very comfortable. Mu Ching-een and I walked home slowly, hand in hand. The street lights stretched our shadows long. She held my arm tightly, her body half leaning against me, a relaxed and serene smile on her face. As we passed a quiet streetside park, I looked at her delicate profile under the moonlight and my heart stirred. I pulled her to a bench and we sat down. What's wrong? She asked, looking at me with confusion. I didn't answer, but simply reached out, held her face in my hands, and under the bright moonlight and hazy street lights, I kissed her deeply. This kiss was different from the tentative and innocent ones before. It was full of confirmation and intense emotion. She was slightly startled at first, then closed her eyes and responded to me gently and firmly, her arms wrapping around my neck. When the kiss ended, our foreheads touched and we were both breathing lightly. I stared into her eyes, my heart pounding, and asked solemnly, Ching-een, will you be my girlfriend? My real girlfriend? She looked at me, her eyes twinkling with a smile, her cheeks flushed. She leaned softly into my embrace, her voice soft and a little coy. Silly. Haven't I been your girlfriend all along? An immense joy instantly overwhelmed me. I let out an excited roar, scooped her up in my arms, and spun around several times on the spot. She let out a small cry of surprise, which then turned into a silvery laugh as she wrapped her arms tightly around my neck. Put me down. People are watching, she said, burying her face shyly in my shoulder. From that day on, we truly fell into a passionate love. The trivialities of daily life were steeped in honey. A good morning kiss from her fragrant with toothpaste. I often liked to sleep in, and she would helplessly come to wake me, only to be pulled back in bed by me to be affectionate for a few more minutes. We still sat in the last row during class, but it was no longer an act. I would hold her hand tightly under the desk, occasionally leaning in to whisper something in her ear, watching the tips of her ears turn red, where she would gently poke me with a pen. She paid serious attention in class, and I would secretly sketch her profile. After being discovered by her, she would shoot me a feigned, angry glance, yet the corners of her mouth held smile. When we watched movies together at night, she would lean against my chest, her eyes turning red at touching moments. I would laugh at her and then hold her even tighter. Sometimes I would pester her to wear those work uniforms. Although she would still be shy, it was more of a sweet helplessness. And occasionally she would even proactively ask which set I wanted to see. Shopping was no longer a painful task, but a pleasure. I would patiently wait for her to try on clothes and give sincere advice. When I saw something she liked without her having to say it, I would secretly buy it to surprise her. We were like all ordinary and sweet couples, filling each other's worlds with drops of love in every mundane day. The holiday arrived and I accompanied Mu Ching-yin to visit her mother in the hospital ward. Her mother looked much better than I had imagined, and a smile appeared on her face when she saw us. Before Mu Ching-yin could introduce me, I stepped forward and naturally called out, "Mom, we're here to see you." Her mother was taken aback, clearly startled by my address. I chatted with her for a long time, asking after her health and well-being, and arranged for a transfer to a private sanatorium with better facilities. Seeing her mother receiving the best care in a completely new environment, Mu Ching-yin's eyes were red the entire time. Leaving the sanatorium, walking under the setting sun, she whispered beside me, "Thank you for doing so much for me." I stopped, turned, and gently flicked her forehead, feigning displeasure. "Silly, you're still saying thank you to me. Your mom is my mom. Isn't this what I'm supposed to do?" She touched her forehead, looking at me with sparkling eyes, and finally broke into a smile through her tears, nodding vigorously. Afterward, I fulfilled my promise and took her on a trip to Dali. The days there were as slow as a poem. We walked hand in hand on the stone-paved streets of the old town, watching the old masters and the silversmith shops clinking and clanking. She picked out a simple pair of earrings and I rushed to pay, calling it a token of our love. We rode a tandem bicycle by a Rye lake. She sat in front, her long hair blowing in the wind, brushing against my cheek with the scent of sunshine and flowers. We rode along the lakeside road, our laughter spilling all the way. We stayed in an inn where you could see the snow-capped peak of Sanshan Mountain just by opening the window. We woke to the chirping of birds in the morning and watched the stars from the balcony in each other's arms at night. We could talk about anything or say nothing at all, just being there quietly. I took her to try all sorts of local snacks, roasted milk fans, noodles, flour cakes. She curiously tasted a little of everything. And when she ate something delicious, her eyes would squint like a contented kitten. It was in Dali on that night when we could see the starry sky by opening the window that she completely gave herself to me. The process was gentler than I had imagined. There was no force, no impatience, only an abundance of love and adoration. When she blossomed beneath me with shyness and trust, my heart filled with an indescribable sense of being moved and a feeling of responsibility. With the utmost patience and gentleness, I guided her, sensing her inexperience, her nervousness, and finally the relaxation and attachment after she had given herself to me completely. That night, we held each other tightly as if we had merged into one. The sound of the wind from Mirai Lake outside the window became the most moving accompaniment. On the last day of her trip, I took her up Sanshan Mountain. Standing at the peak, we looked down at the mirror-like Mirai Lake below, the distant snow-capped mountains glistening in the sunlight. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin gently on the crown of her head. "Ching-yin," I said, gazing at the magnificent scenery before us, my voice firm yet tender. "You see the snow of Sanshan and the moon of Mirai. The snow reflects the moon and the moon watches over the snow. We will be like them forever, gazing upon and relying on one another." She turned, looking up at me, her eyes shimmering with tears of happiness and emotion. She nodded vigorously, stood on her tiptoes, and initiated a kiss on my lips. In that moment, the mountain breeze swept by, carrying the crispness of the snowy peaks and the moist air of Erai Lake. In my arms was the most precious treasure of my life. We held each other tightly as if we possessed the entire world. My status as a rich heir, the loneliness of my past. It all vanished into thin air in the clarity of her love. I knew I had found where I belonged, a happiness more precious than any fortune. In that moment, she and I were the most fortunate beings between Tsongshan and Erai.